For your just a heads up, it's recording now. I figure we can just get started and Tim can come on when he comes on.
When he's done masturbating, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Sure. I bought something. I don't think it's irresponsible. I bought something I think is interesting anyway.
That's an interesting way of starting your conversation.
Well, because it's stupid. It's not something that I need, but I feel like it's something, I don't know. So in university, I think we were all into the initial D thing, right?
Yep.
And the music was amazing, and I think everybody was into the music as well. I think you can pair that with Beatmania, and there's a recipe for disaster. A recipe for Eurobeat disaster, right?
Isn't there overlap?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for years and years, they've been releasing, Avex Trax has been releasing like the Super Eurobeat volume, whatever, and they have a couple a year come out. Volume 180, 197, whatever. They had just so many of them.
They're that high now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, because they've been releasing since like the 90s.
Okay.
And so I read that they're discontinuing the Super Eurobeat CDs, like finally in 2018, which is, I don't know, it kind of sucks, right? It's kind of cool that in 2018 there was still new stuff coming out, but I think it's kind of past its due date,
anniversary, right? Or something.
In any case, so what they're doing is they're releasing volume 250 is a 3 CD set that has a bunch of shit on it that comes out July 6th, or no, sorry, August 22nd, and it's the last one they're going to release. And so I put a pre-order in for that thing.
I can't play that stuff anymore.
No, I can't really either. Tell me why you can't.
Because it gives Irene a headache.
Oh, does it? I can't play because I'm a fucking grown-ass man. But it's if I'm in the car or something, I figure I can just put the CDs in and now and again listen to something. There's got to be something on there. I don't know what's on it, but I assume that they're gonna do like a best of. One of the CDs will probably be like a best of thing, and maybe like a first half, second half thing. I don't know.
Will it be okay for you to play that stuff in a Prius? I don't know. There's something weird about that.
Well, but I'm not gonna play with like the windows rolled down.
Sweet. I bought a lot of useless stuff lately, like popcorn. Apparently, Amazon Canada sells popcorn at like Orville Redenbacher for a fairly good price. $12 for like 24 full sacks of popcorn.
That's weird.
Full sack. Yeah. I don't know.
To go back to this Eurobeat thing just for a second. Disc 1 has so maybe you can explain to me how this works, right? Because I don't understand this. Disc 1 has 100 tracks. Disc 2 has 100 tracks. Disc 3 has 50 tracks.
It must be. Is it like one of those mixes that goes from one song to another?
But 100?
Yeah, because they'll play like up till the first whatever, like the first stanza or whatever, the main line, and then it'll like transition into the next song immediately.
That's still like 40 seconds per song. I can't see it being that.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
You tell me once you get it.
and that's I should probably do a little research before, but I don't know. It's kind of cool and it's interesting as like end of an era kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is there like some limited deluxe edition of it?
I haven't seen. I don't want to know. This one's good enough. Apparently, there's the third disc is 50 song nonstop. Again, though, I don't understand like how they fit those on. I don't know. We'll see. Report back on episode what like 87 or something.
It'll be our opening and ending songs.
Sure. You know what? We'll do opening and ending songs
Five.
tonight.
We'll have 5 of them in there.
Do you know what's a Eurobeat song that was in a video game other than like Initial D Arcade
Mm,
or like Bimani songs?
right.
I guess that's it, eh?
Yeah. I don't think they really had them in any other kind of games.
Can we talk about video games? Did you get that list ready we talked about?
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing, we won't do it now. We'll wait for Tim to be on because I know he'll be all over this. But Octopath Traveler comes out on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be one of the only times in Link Cable history where all three of us buy a game and play it, so we can do some kind of review together. I'm going to make the assumption that you're going to be playing it this weekend, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, if it gets here on time, you don't like. I did it through, was it Amazon or Walmart? I can't remember. One of them. So I'll get it.
I'll be playing that for sure. And I know that Tim, actually, last episode he didn't have a Switch and he has one now, so he can play Octopath. And there's all kinds of buzz, and it looks like it's going to be amazing. So we thought, in preparation for, in celebration of Octopath Traveler, we're going to talk about RPGs a little bit. Did you? So what we whatever. We'll talk about it later. Did you have yours in? Tim sent me a message to say, "I'm ready."
Yeah, I know. He sent that to me too.
I'll send him a link. Hold on, let's get him in here and then we'll talk about it. Did you rank yours or did you just have like top best?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when you guys are talking, I'll have to put mine in some kind of order.
What's up?
Hey, talk about video games that you played.
Okay. Are we starting? Or are you doing some testing with the mic or something? I heard you.
I know we started
like 15 minutes in.
Really? Oh, man.
By 15 minutes, he means 6.
Yeah. And
it just felt like 15 because what we were talking
about. You sound a little echoey, Chris. I don't know if you know that, but oh well.
Hold on, maybe I can fix it.
You sound like you're far away, like talking through a tin can or something.
How about now?
Oh, gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Now we're good.
It's ASMR, isn't that what that's called?
Yeah, man, ASMR. I have to know. This is ASMR.
What? Don't eat something, please.
Can you feel it? Can you hear this or no?
What are you doing? I don't want to know. That's opposite, right? Isn't that scratching the chalkboard? Is that like
that could be ASMR?
Oh, really?
Stop rubbing your dick against the mic and let's go.
I think
that's gross.
I played some stuff. A couple things, some things. Yeah, this is a crazy week for video games because you know what I did? I bought a Switch. Oh, and a story I have a story about this. Got to hear about this story. So, I have a 15 times shoppers point coupon, right? So I'm calling all the local shoppers and seeing who has one. I find one not too far from me. Go over. What?
Shoppers being Shoppers Drug Mart.
Yeah. I drive over there pretty late in the evening. And the guy's like, we just have a gray one. So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. And then he goes in the back, goes in the back. Happens to be a colored Switch, so I'm pretty excited. I pick it up, bring it home, open it up, turn the thing on. And I'm like, okay, this is a little weird because it looks like there's games that are already installed in the system. And then I look and someone named Sam is already registered on the system. And then I look and the system's been played like 9 days prior by some person who played Fortnite and Mario Odyssey or something, or Mario Kart. And I was immediately dismayed, to put it mildly. So I called them back. I said, this thing's been registered. It's been used. What's going on? The guy's like, well, I don't know what you can do about that. You probably have to take it up with Nintendo. I'm like, no. Like, do you think it's likely that Nintendo, someone played it before they shipped it to you from Nintendo? Do you think that's possible? So he's like, well, you'll have to talk to the manager tomorrow. The manager's not around. I'm like, okay, fine. So the next morning, I planned this out. So I thought, well, I bet you he's going to try and give me the runaround. He's going to try and defer this to Nintendo. So because I have information about when this thing was played exactly on the system, namely about 9 days ago, I basically said to him, like, well, I know you're going to try and tell me deal with Nintendo on this, but just, you know what? They might want to know some information. Why don't you tell me when you got this console in the store, right? So if they know that, then it might be helpful to figure out what happened, blah, blah, blah. And he sort of hums and haws, and he's like, just bring it in, I'll refund you. I'm like, okay. Like, I had to push him and try and trap him for him to be able to do that. So then I brought it back and found another one locally that had another one and exchanged it. But I was pissed. Like, I don't understand how this happens. Like, can you imagine that? Like, what? The thing is, and the thing I realized is that the boxes for the Switch, there's no seals inside them at all. If you buy a Switch, nothing is actually sealed. A person could just open it up, take the system out, turn it on, do whatever they want, put it back, and it doesn't look like you can't break a seal. Would you know that? I don't know if that's just my, like, both versions that I opened were like that. When you guys bought yours, was there any seal on the box when you opened it?
I don't remember because it was March.
It's too long ago?
I don't remember because nobody was returning them.
They claim these things weren't returned.
Okay. So still, you could have returned it to them without any trouble. Like, I like this.
They were trying to give me trouble.
Yeah, I know, but they have to take it back. It doesn't matter. Like, you didn't have to go give them the runaround. It's like, just raise your voice a little bit.
Yeah, well, I did.
And they can't deny you, like, returning it.
They were trying.
Is there final sale on anything? No. Like, they can't just, like, make up the rules. They have a corporate headquarters for crying out.
I know, and I called the corporate headquarters. Don't worry. So I had all my ducks in a row on this one.
Don't worry. I'm telling you, like, there was nothing to make a big deal about, man.
Well, it was because I was just excited about it, and then I had to go do a bunch of driving and annoying things to fix the problem. So yeah, but I picked it up, and the first thing I did was I downloaded the Octopath Traveler demo. I played a little bit of it. The music's amazing. I'm really impressed by that. Like, that was one of the first things I noticed about it that I liked. Yeah, the art style's cool. I'm pretty excited for next week. And then so I had to buy something, and I was really excited I didn't think I'd want to buy a game I already own, but I picked up Enter the Gungeon again because I thought that it would be a great sort of handheld system to own a game like that, and I've been playing a lot of Gungeon since I picked this thing up. It's awesome. It's renewed my interest. I mean, there's a big free patch, like DLC, coming out soon too, so that was part of it. Like, I know that's coming out, so I don't mind starting over and playing the game again. But it's great to sit on the couch and play a game like that. Like, I can see this thing being used a lot for stuff like that, for like roguelikes or indie games. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it.
This is the only fucking guy in the world who buys a new system, and then, like, the only thing he gets is a game he's already played. That's not
ours. I want to know
what else should I have got. I'm getting Octopath.
Something new.
Right? Any other game I could borrow from you guys. All the big ones you already have.
Oh,
so
I'm not going to let you borrow anything.
You'll yell at me if I buy it. You're not going to let me borrow.
For buying and giving money to Nintendo like the rest of us have.
Yeah, I did. They get a cut of those indie game sales. But yeah, I like it. I like the thing. It seems like the battery life's not bad either. Like, I was surprised. I don't know how you guys have found the battery life on the Switch. Depends what you're playing, maybe.
Chris Lord.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's great.
Wow. Did I miss something?
Battery life on the Switch, man. It's that is one robust battery.
Seems so. Anyways.
To be honest, I play mostly
You're a dock guy.
No, I don't play on dock. I play it handheld, but I play it handheld like Tim says on my couch, and so I don't play long enough on my couch that it runs out of batteries.
I guess, yeah. That's
right. Like I'll play for like an hour or two and then I put it down and it doesn't die in that hour or two. So it's good.
Yeah, man.
So many USB-C chargers around my house. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? This guy's got so many fucking chargers.
Yeah, I'm straight.
Okay, listen, let's get into it. I want to talk about we talk about what we played after. I'm just chomping at the bit to do this RPG thing.
Oh, okay.
Did you rank them or did you?
So I'll go last because I didn't do this until
shocking that you didn't.
I prepared for other. Okay, you guys. So the rules are the top 10,
never mind.
Right?
It's meaningless.
It's not meaningless.
Chris, before we start, will Nier count as an RPG?
So that's one of my other questions. Because
like, one for sure, but like Nier 2?
Did you say Nier 1 for sure?
Yeah. I would think Nier 1 for sure, and Nier 2 not necessarily.
What's the difference?
Because Nier 1, in my head, like Nier 1 has a lot more like RPG-ish elements in it.
I don't know. To be honest, I didn't even consider Nier. This is my real struggle, okay? Because I have at least two others on this list that like I don't know if they count as RPGs or not.
Let's not mince words with it. Like just like whatever we consider an RPG, let's just like there's no
sure,
about it, right?
Sure. I mean there is though, because if I can put Nier on it, then it's going to change my list. Here, how about this? Let's go through. Tim, you do yours after. So what I want, Tim, you just listen to our list and then like steal our answers for yours and then say at the end.
Not gonna miss. I might, but there's some that I might, but yeah.
You want to do honorable mentions first that didn't make the list and then go into it, or do you want to do that last?
Let's do honorable mentions last, because then like I think part of the fun is looking and seeing what people have, and if you know which ones are on honorable mentions, then it kind of cuts away the amount that you could draw for in terms of like guessing what is at the top of the list. Does that make sense?
Sure.
But I definitely want to talk about honorable mentions because this is a hard one to do. So all we did is we just say choose your 10 favorite RPGs. Could be Western, could be Japanese, could be what, like it doesn't matter. And I think, Keenan, I like the idea of just saying, you know, if you think it's an RPG, then fine, it counts, right? Do you want to do, if you're okay with it, why don't we alternate 10, 10, 9, 9, 8, 8, 7, 7, 6, 6 like this all the way to the top? You okay with that?
And then Tim last.
Yeah, and then Tim can say all his after he's heard ours and made his list based on what we said. Number 10, my choice was World of Warcraft.
Oh yeah, okay.
And originally I was like, well, I don't know, but it's an MMORPG, right? So I think it counts. And it's pretty RPG in terms of like crunching numbers and whatever. I don't want to fight over whether it's an RPG or not.
Sure,
I chose World of Warcraft.
I'm not opposing that.
The amount that I played it, the draw that I had, I think the really important thing for me with this one is the idea that I had a character that I was heavily invested in. And so when I think about playing a role in a game, this game had it really hard, right? Like I had a character that I really, really cared about and I spent a lot of time on and that people knew me as, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, makes my top 10, even just for like industry disruption.
Industry disruption is like max level almost.
Yeah, in terms of scale, in terms of like it's a huge game, right? And it's not that it just happened outside of my sphere. It was, you know, I was right there for a lot of it. So World of Warcraft, my number 10.
My number 10 is Dragon Quest V. So that is largely considered the best of the SNES Dragon Quest games, and it's the one which is like a generational one. It's probably well considered to be the game in Japan. Like that, this is like top tier almost for all the Dragon Quests, I think.
And which system was this one for? Sorry,
SNES.
It was
And I played it on DS though, so
fine.
Yeah.
Do you find Dragon Quest is a hard nut for me because I love the idea of it. I love Toriyama's art. I love so much about it. I mean, I played the first one when I was a kid.
Yep.
I never got into the series, and I know part of it's accessibility.
Simple, right? The mechanics always seem to be a bit simple, especially in the old ones. I never played any of the newer ones.
Yeah.
Was that the case still for like 8 and 9 and those ones?
8 for sure. 8 was still very simple. A lot of fun though. I really like it. Cool. All right. My number 9 is kind of contested territory of anything. I think that Nier is even maybe more of an RPG than this is. But my number 9, and again, I hesitate on this. Would you consider Soul Blazer for SNES an RPG?
That's definitely sure.
Like action RPG, maybe?
Yeah, I mean I mean, you look it up.
You equip things, and there's.
If you look it up, it counts for sure.
Yeah. So Soul Blazer is
in the old sense they would not have it, but like who cares? Like the whole meaning of RPG mechanics are in everything now, even Call of Duty. So that's why it's like so hard for people to really distinguish them anymore. So yeah, I think nowadays.
Yeah. So Soul Blazer was a Super Nintendo game developed by Quintet. Yep. And it was part of a loose trilogy of Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terranigma.
Yep.
The latter two were also very good, but Soul Blazer it's got such a. Have you played it before?
Yep.
It's got a very like a very ethereal vibe to it. It feels very. I wish I had better words to explain what I want to say with this thing, but it feels very nihilistic almost in a way. It feels oppressive. It feels alien. It feels like it's, I think that we talk on the show now and again about a lot of games missing the heart that video games used to have. Not necessarily video games, but TV shows, anything, this kind of stuff. It's easy to wax poetic about the past, but this game has things about it that, like, I come back to it again and again and again. And I'm not big for replaying older games, but this one, man, it's so good. It's so fun. So Soul Blazer.
Is it more of a tone of that game for you that separates it out from the other two? Because Terranigma came at the tail end, and
Terranigma just feels like another RPG to me.
Yeah.
And I would put Terranigma more or less in the same camp as, say, Secret of Mana.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that Illusion of Gaia is kind of the bridge between the two. I really, really love Illusion of Gaia too. And spoiler, it's actually on my honorable mentions list. But Soul Blazer has this Nocturne, Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne has this very, I don't really understand what's happening, but I know it's not good. Like this world exists and I'm trying to exist within it, but there's all these things happening. Like there's this incredible world building where it feels like you're dropped into a world that has already existed, and there's people trying to deal with what's happened. Right?
That's it's like a realized world already that you're a part of. Like you're in the middle of a story and entering it.
And you're external to that world though. It's cool because the idea is that you come down from like heaven or something. You're not a person, right? You're more than that.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, and actually, you know what? We've talked about ActRaiser on the show too. The idea of, you're an angel that needs to help with these towns, and like the townspeople have problems, and you're trying to decide, like there's a kind of an ethics thing back and forth. And Soul Blazer does somewhat of a similar thing where it's this deity come down to earth to not meddle, but to interfere for good or for bad in the lives of mortals.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's so good. I want to like replay it now. So strongly recommend. If you haven't played Soul Blazer for Super Nintendo, it's one of those games that's worth going back to. Absolutely. And I mean, it hasn't aged at all. It feels so good to play even still.
Cool. My number 9 is Earthbound. So for me, it's always had the kids adventure kind of vibe to that game, and it's a very stylized game with lots of personality, is what I would say. Like each town has their own vibe and feels like its own town, like how you would say like Philadelphia has its own vibe and that sort of thing. Like there's very few RPGs that actually do that. I feel like that actually give you that sort of sense of, oh, okay, this is something a little quirky, different. Like there's an actual like culture around that town.
Not to interrupt, but can I tell you a game that I think also does that quite well is Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah.
Where I think a lot of the towns come across as very different
until
you get to the end. And there's like 2 or 3 vector towns that are like really close to each other, and they're all exactly the same. And it's so hard to tell which one is which one. And I remember going like back and forth between them because I'm like, where was this in this one or this one, right? And it's interesting that that's the case because the other towns are so realized, right?
Yeah. In 6, they like collapse the world together, so like everybody's a refugee almost. It's weird. Anyways,
hold on to it because I'm sure we're going to talk about it again.
Okay, number 8 for you.
Diablo 2.
Okay,
I think that counts, right?
Yep.
Played the shit out of it. One of the games I've probably played more than any other. Infinitely replayable. It's so solid. It's so solid. So yeah. Diablo 2, like who am I gonna sell on Diablo 2 at this point, right? Like, has everybody in the world played this?
Yes.
Now, for you, is it the multiplayer experience more than
No, it doesn't matter.
No.
Well, I mean, multiplayer is great. I love multiplayer. I also love single player. Like it's very, very chill. It's the best outside of World of Warcraft. I would say that Diablo 2 is the best like podcast listening game ever. Right? Where you put it on, you tune out, and you just like kill monsters. So yeah.
My number 8 is Evo.
Oh, you bitch. Do you know I didn't put it on my list. I was going to, and I was like, is this an RPG?
I don't know. I think it's just as much as any of the other ones.
Sure.
So Evo, The Search for Eden, I think it's a pretty rare game at this point for the SNES, where you basically evolve from a fish into other creatures and then have to basically, as you evolve, you get more powers and abilities to beat bigger and bigger monsters. It was one of those Enix games. Like, I don't know what it was about Enix. Around that time, they were a bit experimental, but everything just kind of clicked. You know?
But don't you think that those Quintet games that we were just talking about, it's a similar vibe. Like Evo had the same vibe as Soul Blazer.
Yep.
It's so good. It's so good. And that's another one. I've replayed Evo so many times.
It is one of those ones. It's you didn't get it, and I don't have a copy of it, but it's like $300 to $800 depending on how good of your copy is.
I remember calling Nintendo helpline for Evo, like the tip line if you get stuck in a game. Because there's one part where on the map you hit left, and so the map is like nodes. You like Super Mario World, right? And you hit left and you go off the side of the screen and you reappear on the right side in the bottom corner.
Mm-hmm.
The issue though is on my old CRT, like, you know how the corners were like rounded on some TVs, or it was like warped around a little bit. Yeah. And so I could not see my character. And so I'm like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I don't know what to, right? And so I got stuck, and I remember talking to the CSR on the phone, and they're like, well, there should be this. I'm like, there's nothing there. Like, just getting completely stuck in this game. That's funny. Yeah, it's a great one.
Figure it out eventually.
Pressed A. My number 10987
Yep.
is Final Fantasy Tactics for PlayStation.
Mm.
It hurts, eh? It hurts when you forget one.
No, I that one I couldn't, like, any strategy games were clearly out of my list.
Because you don't like them or because they're not RPGs?
I don't consider them RPGs, but that's me and how I
Okay, you think EVO is more of an RPG than Final Fantasy Tactics? Take a walk. Final Fantasy Tactics is a strategy RPG, a turn-based strategy RPG, SRPG. Right? Isn't that the genre, SRPG?
Sure.
This guy. Final Fantasy Tactics. What if you haven't played it? I guess it's on a grid and you move characters around a map and you fight. It's
well, like, think of the story, how different the story was in that game versus
and especially
other games
for the
played,
time,
right? Yeah.
And actually, you know what? I'm going to take that back. Not for the time, because if you think about it right now, I would say that, like, I think about, say, something like Final Fantasy Tactics or Vandal
Hearts.
No, not Vandal
Vagrant
Hearts.
Story.
Vagrant Story. Thank you. And how there was all these really cool games that were coming out with very, very interesting stories that I don't even think we see stuff like that now. Like people like really pushing the envelope for like storytelling. And Final Fantasy Tactics was there for sure. And I can't say that I understood everything that happened in the game, especially towards the end. But it was a ride for sure. Absolutely loved it.
I'll tell you the God's honest secret. I actually like Vandal Hearts more than Tactics.
Do you know that Vandal Hearts almost made my list? I wrote it down in my honorable mentions, and then I got rid of it because I only wanted 10. But Vandal Hearts is great.
Oh, that game, when you talk about visceral, that game, like, you feel every single hit.
Yeah, you spin the sword around and then blood flies out of the guy's head. It's great. I have a story about Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah.
It came out on Valentine's Day. I'm going to say 1998 or 9.
8, I think.
Okay, let's say Valentine's Day 1998. And I was so excited for this game. 1998, I was like 17 years old. And I got invited to go to a Valentine's Day party. And there was a girl there that was all into me. And I stayed home.
Yes.
And played Final Fantasy Tactics instead of going to this party.
And I can imagine, because I remember when I first turned that game on, and I remember like my first like hour.
Yeah.
Like I remember how I felt when I first turned that game on.
I did not regret it for a second.
The music, just screwing around.
The opening, man, like the choke was running and through the puddles.
The music in the opening, like, damn.
Yeah, it was something special.
You and the girl eventually like hook up, or like was that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you got nothing lost.
Yeah, all worked out. Actually, you know what? I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think that was Susan. I think I might be. No. It couldn't have been. It couldn't have been. Never mind.
Let's I don't know who's list. No names.
So what's your number 8?
So my number 7 is Mass Effect 2.
Oh, 7, sorry.
Yeah.
Mass Effect.
Yeah.
RPGs only.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's RPG. Mass Effect is definitely an RPG.
More than Final Fantasy Tactics?
Well, they base everything on dice rolls.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that.
There's absolutely no real. There's not really any mechanical things other than rolling, because you're basically just hitting buttons and commanding people and stuff, and some light first person shooting. But like, yeah, for the most part, it's definitely an RPG with lots of branching ish storylines. And it's probably the most modern RPG that I have on here, because that, I don't know, there's something about that second one that really affected me compared to the first one and the third one. So it just begins with a bang, with the Normandy, your ship from the first game blowing up, and then you basically dying, and then them taking your DNA and reconstituting you. It's just it's pretty amazing. or how that game starts off. That's like the first hour, basically. Oh, that's one of the big ones.
Good. My number 6 is Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. This game is like, talk about games that have a story that like make you work for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Completely thrown into a world that you don't understand, and that's actually part of the narrative, right? Is that you don't understand what's happening. Like, you are as much of a participant in this world as everyone else is.
Mm-hmm.
And so you learn things through rumor and through hearsay, and you just try to survive in this new landscape, new apocalyptic landscape, right?
Yep.
And so cool, because it's not a post-apocalyptic landscape; it's an apocalyptic landscape. Like,
Yeah.
the world has changed, and the world will continue to change until they settle on like the new order, the new post-apocalypse, right? Like, it's happening during the apocalypse.
Yeah.
It's got demons, it's got angels, it's like, it's something else.
Yeah.
It is a fucked up game. It's hard, like unforgivingly hard in times.
Like, how many people would quit at where I'm one of them?
Matador.
One boss, Matador, yeah.
Did you never made it past Matador?
No.
You're gross. Go back and play it right now. Oh, it's fantastic. Actually, you want a story about that game? You know where I played that? First time I ever tried that game out?
No.
That was at your apartment.
Oh.
Yeah, man. I slept over one night, and I woke up earlier than you did, and I was looking through your games, and I saw Nocturne. I popped it in the old PS2 and played the first hour while you were sleeping.
That's amazing. That's really cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't, and it blew me away right from the beginning.
Cool.
Kaneko's designs are amazing. Like, character design is fantastic. Like, absolutely phenomenal.
So my thought
there's a demon that looks like a giant cock in it later on. Like, this crazy stuff.
My thought was always that Megami Tensei games were always a bit more geared to adult RPGer, and Persona is more geared towards like a high schooler.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why Persona does not appear on my list.
Right. Well, I mean, like, the first two are super hard, like Persona 1 and 2. But those
hard because they're like shitty systems and boring.
Yeah.
Like, I think that especially the second Persona, I think is, and Tim, I'm sure that you can speak to the second Persona better than I can. Mm-hmm. But I've always found the systems to be very, very dated, very, very difficult to fight with. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not even so much the game that's difficult; it's like dealing with the game.
Yeah.
But I love the story. Yeah. I love the world and stuff. It's just they're hard to love because of what they are,
Yeah.
So that's my number 6. How about you?
Here's where you're gonna start seeing a lot of repeats. So the first number 6 is Suikoden 1. So back when the PlayStation launched, there were it was this game. Was it Beyond the Beyond? Was the other RPG during that time? Yeah. And Persona 1. They all came out around the same time, and that was during the time when everybody was still trying to get on Sony's case to localize RPGs and stuff, because there was some reluctancy to bring over RPGs. They wanted a lot of polygon kind of things, and Suikoden 1 definitely was not that. And they didn't even bring over Arc the Lad, but they brought over at least Suikoden 1.
How many late SNES Japanese Squaresoft games didn't come out here? Arc the Lad, what is Original Hero, right? There's a lot of stuff that didn't come out. Like, even like Seiken Densetsu 3 didn't come out. It was crazy.
Yeah.
In any case, sorry.
But yeah, so Suikoden 1 laid the foundation for everything that I love about this series. It's a fairly short and fairly easy game, but you started to see some of the mechanics that they wanted to do and what they wanted to basically build upon into the later games. And the first time you have to bring 108 stars together and all of that stuff was really cool. And the whole Gremio scene is still one of the
So good.
most traumatic
So
things
good.
of that time.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like you face off against your father, you face off against the Emperor. It's like all sorts of, it's amazing, amazing game. But yeah, that's number 6 for me.
Do you know well, we'll talk about it in a sec.
Yep.
My number 5 is Earthbound. Just to add to what you said, I don't know if there's many games as close to my heart as this game is. It just, I don't know. I remember crying so hard at the end. I didn't have any. I had no memory of. So I don't know. Giant spoilers for a 20-year-old game coming up, but Earthbound, halfway through the game, they start to like break the fourth wall a little bit. And at one point, they ask you for your name, like the player, you holding the controller, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I put in my name, and then at the ending, when if you guys both beat it,
yep.
Mm-hmm.
So again, spoilers for Earthbound if you're ever deciding that you're gonna play it at some point. You're fighting like this incorporeal entity at the end, and nothing you do is working, and like there's nothing to attack, right? Like it's like this all-consuming just void, right? And then,
trust me, you can attack it.
Yeah.
For hours.
Nothing happens though. And I remember just being frustrated, not knowing what I'm doing. And then Paula, who's got like one of the player characters, has an ability called Pray that does almost nothing. It's completely useless during the game. But you're at a loss. You have no idea what you're doing. So I hit Pray, and then it goes to a cutscene of like some character that you've met earlier in the game, and they hear your voice praying to them. And I was like, right? And then you keep praying every turn Paula comes around, and every time you pray, it's like more and more people from the game praying for your safe return, right? And then the very last prayer that she does, like your name, she prays into the darkness, and you hear her. Oh my god.
It's pretty amazing to like
oh my god,
to put in a command in the game that's basically set up to have that situation happen is genius.
Like I completely forgot I had done it, right? And it even teases it at the beginning and gives you only a few letters of it, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't realize what it is, and then as soon as it starts to form, and you're like, no such a cool experience. Again, like this game came out when I was 14 years old, 15 years old.
Yep.
And so it does something for you, right? Like I think that I'm going to assume that you have and don't tell me, but I'm going to assume you have a bunch of Super Nintendo games towards the top. And I think there's a reason for that. And I don't think we can talk about whether it's because they're better games or whether because that's when it hit your formative years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know that thing about how Saturday Night Live is only funny when you were a teenager? I wonder if this is the same with video games, where because this is when I was a teenager, this is what stuck with me.
Undoubtedly. Well, yeah,
right.
I think so.
So yeah, that's my number 4 is Earthbound.
Cool.
We 4 or 5?
I screwed it up. My 5 is Suikoden 2. I'll let you talk about it because I know it's coming up on yours.
Might be a while. 5 for me is Final Fantasy 6. So, or Final Fantasy 3 as it was first released. So, it's classic of the Final Fantasy games. It's just the story, and score of the music is just beyond anything of that time period. The ambition of the story and the scope that they try to tell and successfully do is incredible. Like it's a whole, you basically see the end of the world, and then you go beyond the end of the world. And
there's post-apocalyptic for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Has one of the greatest villains of all time. Started tons of rumors of characters that should have been resurrected and stuff.
Pre-internet.
Pre-internet.
Tell me, do you know any theories of how to get? I'm assuming you're talking about General Leo.
Of course.
How do you get General Leo on your team?
There was some potion at the dinosaur island.
Now, where does that come from? If I also had like, and it's not that I learned that after the fact. That's something that we talked about while it was like in its heyday. Yeah. So where did that come from? It must have been in a magazine or something, eh?
Pretty sure it was the EGM April Fools.
Well, it fooled us.
It's either EGM or Game Pro, one of those two. But yeah, this is a game like if you never really were like, I don't know if I would like Final Fantasies, this is the one to start off with, I think.
Again, though, it's so hard though because I think it's a big ask to have people go back to Super Nintendo if they have never been part of that era. Like, how well do you think people jump into that now? Not to say that they don't. I'm asking in earnest. Like, do you think that it's an easy thing to do if you were never part of it?
Yeah, I think so. Like, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they keep trying to re-release it, and unfortunately, don't play into the modern ones with modern graphics, like the ones on iOS or
the phone ones. Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta go back to the original graphics, and even though the GBA sound, the sound on the GBA one isn't super great because it was really compressed, like it's like at least worth it to go through the game again. This is one of those games that I think everybody who says that they are some sort of RPG fan should play. So this is the beginning of all those games.
And such a large cast.
Yeah.
I don't know any other game that can have, 20 playable characters and you care about all of them. Almost all of them.
Almost all. Except for the game that has 108, you probably care.
You care for all those too, sure. But a little bit different. I couldn't tell you like, I would not be able to tell you the names of 80 people from Suikoden, but I can tell you every single person from Final Fantasy VI, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think my mind is a bit addled, so I might miss like 3 or so, but yeah.
Sure. But if you said like, the wash lady from Suikoden.
Yep.
Do you know what her name is?
I can picture her portrait. I can't remember.
But if someone said her name, would you know it?
Possibly not.
No, and I wouldn't either. But if I said anybody from Final Fantasy VI, it's not like you'd be like, I forget who that is. You'd 100% you'd know.
Yeah.
So, was that your 5?
Yeah, that was my 5.
Okay, my 4 is Earthbound.
Yep. Your 5 is Suikoden 2, but it'll be on my list. We can talk.
We'll wait and talk about
it. Okay. 4 for me is Final Fantasy 4. Or Final Fantasy 2. So I've always liked this one more than 6. It's just I liked having 5 people in my party. I love the story of this game a lot. Kane's whole story arc is pretty wonderful to me. And I don't know. There's something formative about this game compared to 6, probably because I played it first. And it was just like the music in this game to me is like the tops for me.
Yeah, pinnacle, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about it more later if you want to hold on to other thoughts. It's coming up on mine.
Are we on for yours?
3 now. So my 3 is Final Fantasy VI. Nothing else to say other than just like tons of secrets, tons of like hearsay with friends. Like, I don't know if there's any game I talked about more with other people. And just things that you could figure out and things that you can completely miss, but things that don't also feel like it would be impossible if you didn't like have an FAQ or a walkthrough or something, right? Like it was all accessible. It was just a matter of figuring it out,
There was one thing about 6 I forgot to mention, and I don't know if you had this for you too, but I think this was the beginning of you having to think a little bit more obtusely in your like tackling the RPG. Like for example, like understanding reflect can be cast on enemies and not just a defensive.
No, Final Fantasy IV did that really strong.
Did it?
Yeah, because I remember going up the Mount Ordeals and casting heal magic on zombies nonstop.
Oh yeah, yep. I remember
that. Final Fantasy VI did a whole bunch of crazy stuff where they had things work on bosses
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you remember what combo of spells could kill like 80% of the bosses in that game?
What was it? It's clear and
X Zone or something.
Clear X Zone, that's right.
I didn't know that until years later.
Yeah. I remember doing that on the boss in Cyan's Village.
Yep.
It's so fun. You know, using also in 6 using Phoenix Downs on bosses that were zombies or undead.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So good.
Yeah. No, that was the beginning of like, I think, yeah, you're right. That was the beginning, but then they matured it in 6.
Yeah.
Some of the areas in that game, like, remember, like, I knew, well, I really knew it was something amazing once I got to Zozo for the first time, and it's like raining, and you're going through those like apartment buildings.
It's ridiculous.
Oh my god!
And jumping between the buildings, I remember blowing my mind.
Yeah.
But even going through a town, like, it seems like a small thing now, but going through a town with random battles, right? Like, a town is supposed to be somewhere somewhere safe, and like, I can get in fights here. This is not a town, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the towns had so much character, like so much detail, and like little passageways, and they always put a lot of thought into how the layout was, and yeah, really well done.
Special game. Is this one of the first games too with such an elaborate opening scene?
Yeah,
you know,
it's probably
it starts off with, I mean, even the title screen having like that terrifying piano or organ sounds, and then like the very start with because they used like mode 7 to do the Magitech armor across the snowfields.
You can hear the sound, the wind sound, right?
So can I. Very, very cool stuff.
And then like having Magitech armor as your opening thing, like
being able to control it instead of just
after that, it was like only like once or twice after that, I think.
Yeah.
But it was like they built this whole entire like system for their Magitech armor and stuff, and like basically only used it a couple of times in the entire
game. Suplexing a train.
And speaking of Zozo, after you exit out of Zozo into the mountain and that music kicks up, it's like so... Yeah, that's one of those things that also gets burned in your head.
Something special. So that's my 3 is Final Fantasy 6.
Yep. My third, and I can't... This is I guess the one game on my list is just for me and not for anybody else, is Xenogears. I just can't. I don't even know if I can go back to playing. There's just
I'll tell you that it's on my honorable mentions. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have the same reaction. I was like, I'm trying to put on games that stand the test of time, and I don't think Xenogears does. I've tried to play it again, and it's very difficult.
Yeah.
But it's something so special.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's Yasunori Mitsuda's best soundtrack. He's
so good.
Yeah. I know a lot of people like Chrono Cross the soundtrack more, but for me, this is like pinnacle for him.
I like it better than Chrono Cross.
Different copies of his soundtrack for this, and it's just he got into a whole Celtic vibe in it, and just really brought it to a whole new level in this game. And then a lot of people hate the second disc, but that's my...
Nope, I don't.
I dropped off. That was where I dropped off.
You're gross.
Yep. Me and Chris, the second disc forever.
I know that's a very like controversial statement, though. Like, I don't think that many people share that opinion.
No. Yeah, I can't recommend it for anybody else, but yeah, that's on my that's my third.
Isn't it very similar to what we were talking about Final Fantasy Tactics in this story that requires a lot of the player? Xenogears is another one where you can't just...
Tactics was really hard because I think they retranslated it.
Right, translation was bad, but I think that in Xenogears 2, like, it requires a lot of you. You can't passively play that game and understand any of it. Like, you really have to put in mental effort to follow what's going on. And not to say that it's difficult or obtuse, it's that it's deep and good.
Yeah. And there's another thing about Xenogears' story is that they had to censor parts of it because it was like there was a lot of allegories with church and stuff, and there were concerns about that at the time. So they ended up censoring a lot of that stuff and changing parts of the story for the North American version compared to the Japanese one. So I don't know, like, because I played it.
Choo-choo on the cross.
Well, yeah, it's not only that, but like it's a lot more blatant, I guess. So, yeah,
but there was cool. What's I can't remember his name right now, but the white-haired boy,
Billy.
That's right. I could see a lot more coming out of his story than they put in, because he came from church, right?
Yep.
Cool. That's your 3.
Yep.
My 2 then is Final Fantasy 4.
I didn't realize you love 4 so much compared to.
Dude. I mean, 6 is amazing. I loved it, but 4, and I think that you hit it. I think it's the first. How funny I is, because I think it's the first modern RPG that I played. But modern in the sense that when you compare it to Dragon Quest, or when you compare it to Final Fantasy 1, like, this is something different. This is something that I have never seen before, and this is blowing my mind. Right? Like, even as a, this game came out when, like, 1992, 1994. No, it had to be earlier than 94. In any case, I was probably 12 when it came out. And I remember getting into it and just, this is nuts. Like, I can't believe what I'm playing here, right? I didn't own it until much later. We rented it probably 4, 5, 6 times before I ended up playing it. I've replayed it so many times, and I think the one thing that it does have over 6, and one thing that I've always appreciated about RPGs even now, tell me who I have to use during the story. Right? Yep. Like, I think that the one thing that 4 does over 6 is that 6, I can choose who I want, and so it's a very broad story that can include any of my characters. Where with Final Fantasy 4, force me to use these characters at these times, and then play the story to the character that I'm using.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that there's a lot more impact when events occur and they're removed from your story. When the 2 of them are removed from your story at the same time.
Oh my God.
I remember crying like a baby a couple times during this as well.
Yeah.
It's something else. And I mean, even the ending where the final stretch brings you was inconceivable to me. Like, what is happening right now? So yeah, it's something special, absolutely. So Final Fantasy 4 is my number 2.
I think also, I think what it probably, for me, is it was the first RPG that had like a cinematic vibe. Like, that was a big thing about that game.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like an arcade experience, right? This is something that I sit down with and spend hours and hours and hours investing myself into.
And they were trying to lead into moments, right? Like, it was trying to, like, bring you to a point in the story that you would remember, like the giant of Babel moving and things like that. It's just, you remember things.
And how funny, like, I remember playing this game and being like legitimately terrified at moments, and very, very sad at moments, and excited at moments. Like, it's a game where you felt things. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
I wonder if there's some kind of lead from Final Fantasy IV to other interests in my life now, where I really, really, really dig movies that make me feel something, or that have, you say that lead to moments. I think that I look for this type of story, and I wonder if it, it kind of was sparked by this. Like, I can't think of anything before that had such an impact in that sense. Yeah, it's something. It's something very special for sure.
My number 2, which is probably from your list, I'm guessing is your number 1. Why don't I skip my number 2, because I'm guessing is your number 1. We'll talk about it anyway. So what's your number 1?
Well, no, I'm assuming that's the same thing, but I'm curious what your number 1 is now.
Okay, well, number 2 is Chrono Trigger. So
my number one's Chrono Trigger. So let's collectively talk about Chrono Trigger. I mean, Tim, I know this is your number one too, is it not?
No, but it's my top. The top of them is hard to tell.
It is very difficult.
Look, it could be a number one. Let's put it
How? So I have trouble ranking these. Originally, I had them all just in a pile because
it's not.
With Chrono Trigger, the reason why I left it at number one is because for a very, very, very long time, it was my number one.
Mm-hmm.
Not only my number one RPG, but like my favorite game.
Right.
And I would say that lasted, man, deep into like, I don't know, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. Like, it, and not to say that there was anything that got better than Chrono Trigger. It's just that, you know, enough time had passed where like I can accept that it's amazing. It's in the pantheon of like best games ever made, and that's good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I have to put a rank to it, sure. I have no hesitation to say that Chrono Trigger is the best RPG I've ever played.
Like, think about
it's funny how you said that it was hard for you to put a list together or rank it, because like for me, my ranking hasn't. If you look at my ranking, everything's old except for Mass Effect.
Hasn't changed.
Right? Like nothing from PlayStation 2 era is on this list. So everything is PlayStation 1 and SNES basically.
I had Nocturne.
There shouldn't be any changes.
Chrono Trigger is a game put together by the best people in the industry. It's a one-time thing that will never happen again.
Yeah.
They tried to do it again with Chrono Cross, and in my opinion, failed miserably.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't think that you can. I mean, Chrono Cross is not anywhere on my list, even in my honorable mentions.
Yeah, not for me either.
Your honorable mentions?
No.
No. See, so
the music is sublime, but
the music's ridiculous.
That doesn't
the
raise it.
Ridiculous. The battle mechanics are ridiculous. Like so much about it was so new, and so polished, and so well done. Like, how do you take a game? So it's if you haven't played Chrono Trigger, it's a time travel game. And the first playthrough is pretty straightforward. On New Game Plus, at any given moment, you can, well, more or less at any given moment, spark the ending again. And depending on when you finish the game, the outcome is different. And there's like 14 different endings. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I know 100%. I've gone through at least, I'm going to say 15 times, because I've absolutely, well, no, if it's whatever, I've done all of the endings for sure.
Yep.
And I've beat it multiple times just for fun outside of the first time. Like it just,
I mean, you jump over to New Game Plus, but I mean, the first playthrough has got so many moments in it. Like, think about the moment when you first get to the future. Like, what? Like, you just sort of get blown away by this. Like, it's shocking, right? You don't expect to see that kind of thing in a game, like that kind of an RPG, I guess, at the time.
Hungry all the time.
And then the ending, like how, like when you see the news report or whatever with what happened in the past, now when you're in the future, like the end of the world, and like it just at that point you're not expecting any of that to happen. It's almost like because you've almost had sort of an ending to the game to some degree, or you feel like you've seen the bad guy in the game. It does so many things with that too. I mean, like, spoilers for Chrono Trigger, like the main bad guy becomes a party member later. Like, how many games do that? It's done now, I think, more maybe. It's more of a trope, but not then.
Oh.
Like,
Man.
Yeah.
And how funny, like all of our voices changed to just, Chrono Triggers.
It's just magical. Like, it's something that at the time it really feels like you can't even imagine that this is like a game at a certain point, like that someone developed this, like this small cart, and it has all of that in there. And
well, let's break it down. Like mechanic wise, you have like ability to combo magic attacks together and find new ways of attacking people. Yeah. And that can be 2 people having skills that cross over, or 3 people having crossover.
Yeah. And so it was always fun throughout the game, you're constantly switching party members, partially because of that. You just want to see what they can do together. And yeah, it was so exciting to just experiment in that game.
And then the music, once again, like just amazing. It's Nobuo Uematsu along with Yasunori Mitsuda combining,
which is bananas.
The opening window thing and the bells in the beginning,
yeah, Millennium
is just
thing.
right there. The title screen music with the TikTok, like that whole lead up from the title alone. Like, you want to talk a strong title, like Final Fantasy VI is incredibly strong as an opening title, but Chrono Trigger's a little simpler, but it certainly gives it a run for its money, primarily because, and it uses Mode 7 too, actually. I think about it.
Like you were saying about so Mitsuda and Uematsu did the soundtrack.
Yes.
Yuji Horii from Dragon Quest. Doing like designs. You got Akira Toriyama doing the character design and art for it. Hironobu Sakaguchi from Final Fantasy series working on it. Like, when is that ever going to happen again? I mean, obviously not now, but what would be like a dream team crossover now? Like, imagine taking I don't know who. Give me your dream team now.
Well, they can't even do that for like a more simpler concept, like a fighting game, for example, right? They try to cross over different things, right? It just doesn't mesh as well, right? They've tried that often in Japanese stuff, even like let's say even like tactical RPG with the Namco was a Namco Sega one, right? Like all that
Project X Zone.
Capcom one, sorry, yeah.
But that's just crossing over characters and stuff. I mean, from like a development and more of a game designer or music kind of thing. Actually, you know what's funny? You know what? It did kind of happen to a smaller degree during the PS2 era.
Yeah.
Think of what event I'm talking about, where it's not for a specific game, but when Clover was founded, like, can you imagine having like Mikami and Kamiya like together making it? Like, there's a reason why Clover / Platinum was so ridiculous during that time. Man.
Yeah, I mean, they just worked together well too. Like, it wasn't like I know, and it's not like Platinum had, like, during that era, even though they made really good games, like none of them are legendary like how Chrono Trigger is. And it was the biggest cart during the time. It had moments like that whole judge sequence.
Oh,
so good. And then the escape on that bridge with that dragon tank, where it all of a sudden turns into like a 2D side-scrolling thing.
Yeah, that's like at the very beginning of the game, and like even Tim talking about the future, like there's a whole bike sequence there. Like, what the heck is that all?
Mode 7 bike racing.
Holy smokes! Like, it's a game that's flabbergasting. Like how they invested in different mechanics and systems and things.
And some of my favorite, I mean, it seems silly maybe, but some of my favorite, like, planning how I'm going to equip items on my characters. The items and how they, like, the impact each item has in a fight, it's not as great. It's like very distinct. Like, this armor will give me this much of a bonus. Like, it's more, the items made a big difference in terms of what you could do. And I really spent a lot of time like, which accessory should I put on? There was like a 2 accessory weapon and armor. Was there more than that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, but there wasn't tons of stuff when you compare it to other RPGs. But the stuff that was in it made interesting choices, like for how you would equip your team, and I really appreciated that.
They even did things forget that, like it's opening the treasure chest too.
Yes, like, I was just gonna say that exactly thing. Yeah. No, go ahead, Keenan. What you were going to say about
like because you have the whole time travel mechanic, the order which you open the like these black treasure chests in, whether it's in the past and the future, it matters to the game. So there's all sorts of things that
the items are better if you leave them in the past and get them in the future.
Yeah. And that music, that when you can't open the chests, I know that music. It's in my mind.
So mysterious.
Yeah, it is the most mysterious little piece of music there is.
Oh, and they tease that for the entire game.
Yeah.
So, oh.
You're thinking about it all the time.
All right. So, Ken, what's your? I'm really curious to see what your number one is.
Oh, that's you'll know. It's Suikoden 2. Then.
Oh shoot! Of course.
like Chris and I will always talk about the story in this game, like till no end. Especially the time there's a particular time when your hero character, you've gone out, done a huge battle, you've come back, and you decide to split off with the other main character guy who you're with in the beginning, Joey, and then you're waiting for him at the
Oh God.
at the town wall as sunset comes, and like he's waiting there. It's like a gorgeous sunset that Konami created there. The music is just swelling up and amazing, and just leading to this moment where Joey finally appears back there, and it's like you don't feel like that the feeling of I'm home and people are there waiting for you. It's just an amazing moment in that game.
So good. I like goosebumps even just thinking about it. You know, so Suikoden 2, a little piece of trivia. Do you know that I played that entire game, like the full game in its entirety, with Matt Churchward? Like sat and watched the entire thing. He's not as big of a video game guy, but he got completely sucked into the story as well.
Because like
one of the
no, you go. Sorry, I'm like there's things in this thing, but
one of the most villainous bad guys in any medium, I feel. Luca Blight is the worst. He's scary. The opening video is amazing. And he's got that like face change where he like lashes out at the camera in the opening movie. It terrified me every single time. And it's something that I would watch every single time I booted it up, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic game.
And the end of Luca Blight is one of those
ridiculous
top moments again. And but I mean, that's all on top of all of the like things that they already had established in Suikoden 1, with regards to the battle mechanics of combining different characters to have different combo attacks. The way the rune system works in the game, that how there's runes that you can equip on anybody, and then there's like special runes that can't be removed from anybody, and like those are like have sometimes like a level, like if there's a level level 4 attack for the magic spell, there's a level 5 for those true runes and stuff.
Yeah.
The whole Iron Chef thing that happens in the game, it's just wow, like so many different things that I love about this RPG, and so like I played it through maybe 3-4 times, and it's still great every single time.
Really cool war mechanic.
Yeah,
like a rock paper scissors army versus army thing that works really, really well. Very exciting. It never feels, even though it's somewhat random, it doesn't feel random because of the strategy that they do. Shoot, this game's so
pushes
good.
you to recruit more people and stuff so that you can have more people to throw at the war. It's just wow.
And still replayable for sure. Like I don't think that it's a game that's aged at all. It works really, really well. Where Suikoden 1, the cracks show, and like I really appreciated what you said earlier about the first game being kind of like the testing ground for the second.
Well, they were planning both like all together, eh? Like it was all part of the same planning, apparently. There was a really good Retronauts, the way they talk all about Suikoden, and I recommend both of you listen to it. They get really into a lot of the detail, and yeah, they had planned all of that story, apparently.
So, composer. This is the last game I think she did. She was pregnant at the time when she was writing the story. The music for it, and so once that was all done, she basically Miki Higashino. So she basically retired from games. I remember after this. Yeah. She like I don't understand, like, this game kind of came out of nowhere ish. Like, even though I love the first game, like how much impact there is on this game is pretty cool. And then the fact that also there's some things, like if you played the first game, you'll appreciate things in the second game a lot more. Like some
Absolutely.
characters, their family line, how they're
They show up. That's right.
it's just yeah.
She also worked on Gradius.
Yep.
Super interesting. There's a bunch of games here that she's worked on that you wouldn't expect. She did some stuff after that. She worked on Genso Suikoden Volume 1 and 2.
Yep. Basically remixes of her music, though.
Right. Oh, is it? Yeah, it's great. What do you want to tear through? Can I just read off all of my my honorable mentions? And if you have anything to say about one, then stop me. And if I have anything to say about it, I'll stop.
Sure.
Front Mission 3.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Best of the series. Never replicated.
Great soundtrack.
Yeah. It's an
Go on the
amazing game.
internet in the game.
Yeah.
It was super cool.
Illusion of Gaia, which we talked about briefly.
Well, hold on. Front Mission 3 for another second. Just the great thing about a Front Mission series, and something that some people should try out, is the fact that the game allows you to have like damage on different parts.
Parts. Yeah, blow off their legs and they can't walk anymore. Blow off an arm and they lose that weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's really good.
It's fantastic. So here's a bit of a controversial choice, and I think that most people would disagree with me. Breath of Fire 5 Dragon Quarter for PS2.
Oh yeah, I have it still.
It is very unconventional.
Mm-hmm.
If you screw it up, then you need to start from the beginning of the game.
It's a kind of a roguelike in a subtle way, you know?
Absolutely. It did something special for me, though. It was something that
Cool.
I did not expect. And again, I don't know if it would be on my honorable mentions if I went back to play it again.
Mm-hmm.
But Dragon Quarter was it was something new. Absolutely, that's for sure. Secret of Mana was kind of the one that I love it. I don't. If Nier counts, then it'll be replaced by Nier.
Hold on to that thought. We can talk about that more.
Sure. Xenogears, Skies of Arcadia.
Mm, right.
Absolutely fantastic. And Skies of Arcadia was one of those games that was somewhat like Suikoden in that you gather a bunch of people from all over for your home base.
Mm-hmm.
But you were limited to the 3. Were you limited to like 3 to 5 characters? What was it again?
Yeah, you had 3 characters on your team, and I don't even remember. Was it just you always use Vice, Aika, and Fia, or whatever her name is, the alien girl?
Yeah.
No,
but it's criminally underplayed because it was on the Dreamcast. So that if you can have it, do it.
It was re-released for GameCube as Skies of Arcadia Legends.
Oh, yeah.
But again, criminally underplayed because it was released for GameCube. Fantastic game that I don't think that a lot of people played it. But you know what? It's got good verbal buzz. I know a lot of people think of it highly as something that should be played. Mother 3.
Mm-hmm.
Not much to say.
Oh, I'm surprised that that's not on your list.
Yeah, I was too.
I like it a lot, but I like the simplicity of Earthbound.
Right.
Mother 3 tries to do a bunch of, and I guess Earthbound did the same thing. Like I said about how prayer was useless, and you had shoot with Jeff, and there was different things that you could do. I feel like Skies of Arcadia. I feel like Mother 3 tried to do that stuff as well. The music timing thing didn't do it 100% for me.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that some of the characters were fantastic, and I thought that some of them were good. I'm not sure. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to make a top 10 list.
Yes.
Right.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Another game,
not legendary like Mother 2 was, like in that way.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. And you know what? It may just be because I played it when I was in my like late 20s, right?
sure, yeah.
It could just be the fact that I wasn't a teenager when I played it, and if it would have come out during that time, then it would probably be up at the top, right? Another one that I don't know if it counts as an RPG, Dark Cloud 2.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it's an RPG for sure.
It's a PS2 game where you build towns. It's absolute dungeon crawler. It's the biggest grind ever, but it's a lot of fun.
I watched you play that game
Yep.
more than I care to admit.
It's good stuff. You can play golf in the dungeon. That's pretty fun.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. It's got a different name, like Sphere or something. I can't remember what it's called. Fire Emblem 7. Fire Emblem, when they tried to turn into a thing in North America, the first one that they released was branded just Fire Emblem for Game Boy Advance, with no subtitle, no number. This is Japan's Fire Emblem 7, Burning Blade, I think it was. I really like Fire Emblem a lot. Keenan wouldn't say it counts as an RPG because it's like Final Fantasy Tactics. And I don't know whether this was the best one, but this is before the waifu thing, so I like it better because the waifu stuff is bullshit, and I'm not a huge fan of Fire Emblem anymore for that reason.
Yeah.
But I really, really enjoyed it. I think it was better than Shadow Dragon, and I think it was better than Sacred Stones, the Twins one that came out afterwards for Game Boy Advance. And the GameCube ones were all fine. But I think that Fire Emblem 7 was the one that I enjoyed the most. And then my last honorable mention, and kind of strange, but I think it deserves a spot, is Pokemon Red or Blue.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Right? It's kind of... I was thinking about it. And
the original, yeah.
Pokemon came up, and I think that, the other ones are great. Fine, I'll still play them, but Red and Blue is the one, like, it's attainable to get 150 Pokemon. They're all within game, more or less. Like, there's 3 you have to trade for, but for the most part, it's attainable as long as you're willing to grind and spend time in the field, And I did it. I got all 150, which was cool. I think the issue with some of the later ones is that to get all of them, like, it takes a lot of time and a lot of work, and the Pokemon box stuff and transferring them from older games into, I don't know, whatever. Yep. Red and Blue.
So I have 2 that weren't mentioned. One is Tales of Phantasia, which is the very first one of the Tales series. I think everybody should. I think it's a really nice and different way of doing an RPG where there's some more action, like 2D action elements in it. It can get a little bit chaotic, so I don't know. Sometimes you just have to hope and pray that the command that you put in goes through, because like there's just so many things happening on the screen at once, so you kind of lose control of the characters, and that's not exactly everybody's cup of tea. But I think it feels a pretty strong lineup, and it's pretty good. KOTOR, the very first KOTOR was something that I really enjoyed at the time. BioWare's probably their claim to fame at the beginning, and I think it's an excellent example of Western RPGs finally kind of catching up a little bit to Japanese RPGs in terms of laying out a story and not overly complicating the mechanics. Even though you can see the dice rolls in this, they were starting to move away from it a little bit. So just keeping the mechanics a little bit more manageable, as opposed to something like Ultima or something like that, which I can never wrap my head around. But KOTOR was the first thing of that. Games I played, but didn't play enough, but I liked them at the time. I still don't know whether I still like them. One of them is Super Mario RPG.
I thought about putting it on.
Yeah, I don't know if I really loved it like as much as everybody else did, but I thought I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, I would put myself in the same camp. It was good. It was fun. It was cute.
Yep. Lufia 2
Dude, it was on my list and I got rid of it. I limited myself to 10 on the list and 10 honorable mentions, and Lufia 2 was on there.
Yeah, so I never completed it to completion, but it was a pretty good RPG at the time. Secret of Mana 3, Seiken Densetsu 3 is. I don't know what to say about that game. Like, I think a lot of people think really highly of that game just because it wasn't attainable. But
is that why people think highly of it, though?
I think so.
I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's why it gets like lionized by a lot of people.
Yeah,
like,
I
it's
agree.
very. It's got great graphics, but I mean,
it's totally different than like it feels totally different than the other one, though. Right?
Not,
Like,
as,
it doesn't
not
even.
as clean as Secret of
No.
Mana.
And I don't like they removed the charge system. Like that you hold the button down. As stupid as it sounds, like I didn't like that they removed that.
you know what's kind of funny is like after Secret of Mana, they kind of just lost it. It's so weird.
I could never figure out what a Secret of Mana, like what 4 or 5, that PlayStation 2 one that was totally bizarre and everyone hated.
Legend of Mana, where you're
No, not that one. That was
Secret of
bizarre
Mana?
too, but no, there was like one after Legend of Mana.
Secret of Mana is the game.
It was like a Mana, some Dawn of Mana. That's what I'm thinking of.
They're all weird after Secret of
Yeah.
Mana.
I mean, talk about Celtic soundtrack. Legend of Mana has a really cool soundtrack, but it's a weird game, and it wasn't at all like. Had they not called it Mana, it might have been a game I would have liked, but I was very disappointed in that game.
Witcher 2, I wanted to like, but I can't wrap around my head on what they wanted me to do for the mechanics. Like, I don't understand like how that game got so high marks with the way it controls, but I don't know. Like, it's pretty to look at. It's an RPG that's up there. For some reason, like, I know I should probably put Skyrim up here, but it's just not on my list.
Maybe if you played it in VR.
Maybe that's what I needed to do. And then the last two, Phantasy Star 2, probably the best of the Phantasy Star games.
What about PSO?
I never played PSO, so
I liked it.
yeah. No, that was a Dreamcast one, right?
Like super unattainable. Like, talk about a niche fucking game. Like, so JRPG for Dreamcast that you had to buy a modem for, and like had the I don't know, prowess to get online with this bullshit. Like, at the time it was out, like, yeah. But I played a little bit. It was fun, kind of a new experience, but difficult, right? Like, similar to Persona, where it just, I want to like this, but it's making it hard for me to like it.
Yeah. Phantasy Star 2, a little bit more accessible, but the game is hard, man. You have to be careful, like, how you approach that game. And then finally, Chris, I'm surprised you don't have Lunar on your list. Like, I have it here because I didn't really play too far into it, but I thought you would really love this game at the time.
I think maybe I outgrew it.
Yep.
I remember I loved it at the time. I don't have any fond memories of it. I think that it so Working Designs, I feel, did their, how to explain this without being like an elitist prick.
It sucked.
Feels like it was translated by like anime convention people. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And so,
but
like, for
like otakus.
Yeah, for that reason, I feel like it hasn't really, I don't know. I got nothing for it. I remember liking it, though.
Finally, Tim, just, do you have your top 10, or do you want
to... Sure. And I made it not even like, some of the stuff you guys mentioned was on there, but I already had come up with those on my own while I was listening to you guys, and they hadn't come up yet, interestingly enough. So this is a clean list. It's not influenced by you guys.
Bullshit. Excuse me.
It's not. It isn't. Trust me. All right, so number 10, Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. And I want to say that this game, it's before the waifus came in for the Persona series still. It's almost every game on my list has a great soundtrack, which I guess is really important to me, apparently. I didn't realize it until I'm looking at this list now. It's a game that's on my top 10. I did not finish this.
That I haven't played for more than 10
I did
hours.
not finish this game. And part of it, you know that feeling where you don't want to finish a game because you don't want it to end? Like, you just want to sort of be in that world. That's why. Like, I really liked... It felt completely fresh, different than any other RPG I'd played at the time. I gambled in the casino in the game for hours just because I was like delaying trying to finish the game. It's quite something. The characters are very distinct. They're unconventional as characters. Still, even now, like you don't usually see characters like this. So they had that cool rumor system, which was really well realized. I think. Sure, it was very clunky. The combat was clunky. I think it had a bit of a charm because of that, partially because it was just new. So I didn't really think of it as clunky, but of course, looking back, it was quite clunky. But no, it's cool. The enemy designs are like still insane, even though, I mean, if you compare it to some of the later games in the series, they go a little further. But yeah, it's good stuff. Number 9, you guys are gonna probably say no, this is not allowed on a top 10 of RPGs, but I'm gonna put it on there anyway. Symphony of the Night. I think it's an RPG to enough of a degree that you could include it on a list like this.
I think you're a fucking idiot.
that's what I thought you'd say. But yeah, no, it pulled me right in. You have it is an action game, but
good or not, right? That's
What's
not
that?
what we're arguing. We're not arguing whether Symphony of the Night is good or not.
no, I know.
That.
Your character has stats. You equip items on them. I think it's an RPG. And it's if you look on a list of RPGs, it shows up. So I think it's part RPG anyway. So I think it can count.
I think the official stance from Link Cable Podcast as an entity is that it's not an RPG, though. And
well, you guys are voting me down. That's fine. Great. Can I move on?
We made a promise that we wouldn't do that, so that's why it's okay. So go on, yeah.
All right. Number 8 is System Shock 2. This game was before BioShock, before any... It was the first-person shooter that I played that I didn't realize was actually an RPG. Like, it was the first time I played. And I think, there's some people I think that have played, what is it called? Marathon. Like, years before or whatever. I never heard of that. Like, that wasn't on my radar. So System Shock 2 is the first time I played a game that had an inventory, that had an interesting story, that it is first person, but it feels much more like an RPG than a shooter. One of the craziest twists, craziest twists ever. It has horror elements, really disturbing stuff in it. It's excellent. Really, really cool game.
Tim, how did you rank Symphony of the Night so low on your list? Is really what I'm more interested in right now.
Partially because it's partially an RPG. Like, I don't know, it's maybe not like 100%. So maybe that's why it's lower. I don't know.
Okay, so the RPG parts of the game are not strong enough for it to merit it to be higher.
Higher.
But if you were putting this on an action game, it would be a lot higher.
Yeah, it would be. Sure.
All right.
But I couldn't think of anything else to put there. Like, I have a runner-up list that has stuff on there that could have taken that spot, but I like this. I don't know.
Okay. What's 7?
Final Fantasy Tactics for sure is that. I agree. It's phenomenal. I got my brother into video games. He played it more than me. My younger brother. It's the battle music is still, what is it called? Something Random Waltz. That track is one of the craziest, coolest, ever-changing pieces of music. You listen to it, it's only like three minutes long, and it feels like so many different, like, it felt like he made 5 songs and then compiled them into one song. That alone is one of the things I'll always remember about Final Fantasy Tactics. It's the music is really good, but the character is really cool. It had like a real political intrigue thing that I hadn't seen previously, so that was pretty wild. Yeah, you had to sort of pay attention to know what was going on in that story, I think, for a part of it. So it sort of started that whole, like, I'm not sure. I mean, we could talk about that too, like the Japanese thing of like killing God, or like religion's evil and blah blah blah. Like that game did that sort of sneakily, and you slowly kind of reveal that stuff as you played. So I mean, there's a lot of games that do that now, but I think it was one of the first that started to do that.
I'm pretty sure the Say series started.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. But in terms of when I played this, the Shin Megami Tensei games did that as well. But even the old ones did, I think, too. Like the Nintendo one must have done it, I think, too. But Tactics was the first one that I played that had that kind of story element to it. So it's pretty cool. Number 6. You guys are gonna hate me. You are gonna hate me for saying this. And Earthbound is not on my list, and I'll tell you why Earthbound's not on my list. I played Earthbound way later, like way later than you guys, and it sucks that I played it way later, because I would have had the same. Would have had that place in my heart, the same as you guys.
Tim's about to play Undertale right now.
Yeah, it's Undertale. Because listen, because this is what happened. I heard about Earthbound. It was hyped like crazy, and then I played it after, right? Like, and then I was so hyped up that you don't get to the crazy good parts in Earthbound till near the end of the game. Like, a lot of stuff happens. It's cool, but it wasn't at all what I expected from how people hyped it up. Like, I had a totally different idea of what I was expecting. Like, it didn't match my expectations going into it. And so I played through it, beat it, but I was so like tuned out by the end. I was just trying to like finish it that I don't think that stuff, like, I missed it. Like, I wasn't invested in the game at the point where it mattered to appreciate it, because of how late in my life that I played it. So when Undertale came out, I think I had the same feeling of what you guys had towards Earthbound, because I didn't expect it to be good, and it did something that was really unique, and it's one of those games that like actually touched me quite a bit in terms of what it did. And I didn't expect, being that old, like, when did it come out? Like, in my 30s, to have an RPG affect me emotionally like that game did. So it has to be on my list. Yeah. Let's move on.
I don't really hate Undertale. Like, I think it's fine, but I just don't.
I also don't hate Undertale.
Sure.
It just makes me feel like it's like, for me, the strongest part of that game has always been more of a, I don't know what the game is, more like a visual novel peppered with RPG elements.
Yeah, I can see that
thing. Rather, and I know like they play with the whole RPG mechanics and stuff, and you have to do it there, and it's somewhat of a shooter mechanic too in there. Yeah. But that's why I don't know. I don't think of it as an RPG. It's like too short to be an RPG too.
It has one of those like multiple ending things. I mean, I like the world building in it, actually. Even it seems silly at first, but there's actually a really serious world building going on, which is quite cool. Like, it sells itself completely differently at the beginning, and then pretty early on, it turns things around, that it's actually trying to do something serious. So yeah, it's pretty special, I think. And the soundtrack's also fantastic. Number 5 is Final Fantasy IV. Like, we already talked about it. Like, it's amazing. I don't really need to say anything else about it. Number 4 is Secret of Mana. I rented this game like 10 times. I I tried to get people to play, like come over and play. I think I even got a multi-tap to try and get 3 people to play at one point. I rented one.
We bought a Hori. I remember doing like a mail order thing for one, like not even internet.
Just
like,
because of this game, right?
In a magazine, yeah.
Yeah, it's the music, like the whole opening, just the feeling of going on this just crazy quest, and like it was the first like real good action RPG I think I played that had like a meaty like combat system. Bosses are all phenomenal. Like parts of the game that I remember the most are when you first get to the crazy town where everyone's like zombies, and that whole part. The wall boss, like there's so many highs in that game. When you first get the airship, so to speak.
What I remember most about that game was my brother spamming the sprites exploder thing like over and over and over again.
Yeah, the rings
over the game.
Like the whole ring system was great. There was even some light puzzles in the game in different dungeons. The upgrades were awesome. Going to like it's part of the he's a character in the story, and you go back to him to upgrade your weapons all the time. Like
my whole issue is with Secret of Mana is if you start looking at those ones, then wouldn't you have put like something like Alundra on your list instead?
I was thinking about Alundra, yeah, but I played Alundra again. It's when you played it, really. Like it is totally when you played it. I think for some of these, like Alundra, I didn't play till like I got it digitally on PS3 or something at one point.
Sure,
and
but
it just didn't have that.
Like when I'm thinking for you, especially, like you played a lot, like you liked these kinds of like Legend of Zelda-ish kind of games, right? Like that
I don't know that I actually do that much. Like I've played them, a lot of them, but I don't know if they would go on a top 10 list. This is the only one that
Mana, like
yeah, this is the only one, and it's because of when I played it. Like I remember the day that I rented it for the first time, and not even knowing what it was. Like a lot of these games, like same with Symphony, like renting it without knowing at all what it was, and being kind of blown away. It's yeah.
Do you think it ruined it a bit now that we like have so many reviews and opinions before a game comes out?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It does.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like without question, it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
having a surprise element,
and we do it to ourselves too. Like, am I going to buy a new game without looking at a review now? Very unlikely, right?
I want to waste some money, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is funny considering I have way more money now than I did as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
You have to be careful as a kid.
But there's still that trash element. Like, there's still trash. Like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I agree. Like, it's too bad that that's something that.
Okay, what's next?
Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, Diablo 2, number 1. That it was for sure. Like, I remember it was when I first played it, when we were all living together and had the LAN. Just like the magic of like having a game to sort of get into those kind of themes too, about like demons and like that Western style of like hell and all that stuff. Like especially that time in my life too, like where I was more into the religious side of things in general. Like it was a bit of a breath of fresh air in some regard, like being able to like fight like demons in that way. I didn't really consider it in the same, even though, you know, Japanese RPGs that dealt with demons, I didn't really view them in the same way as the demons in Diablo 2. And
see, that's surprising to me because I feel like the demons in Diablo are more cartoony than anything else.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the voice acting, I think,
not to take away from what you felt about it, just saying like that's how I felt about it.
I was more scared of the demons in Diablo 2, like the bosses, like because of how lethal they could be, and this friggin' crazy voice acting. Like their voices were always super unnerving. Like Andariel, when you first go to her area, like when she sees you, or any of them, like when you first play that game, they're intimidating.
I don't think it's because they're demons though. I think it's because they can kill you.
Maybe. I mean, it's
For
comedy
me,
film. Oh no, certainly. It wasn't that they were demons that bothered me necessarily. I think just the theme was a bit unnerving overall. Like for me personally, the soundtrack just amplified everything. Like the first piece of music you hear in the Rogue Village is one of the best pieces of music in any game, in my opinion. That guy, what is his name? I can't remember. But anyway, his soundtrack for Diablo 2 is just, it elevated the game so much.
Tim, why are you Final Fantasy VI over Chrono Trigger? Because I don't think most people would necessarily have it in that order. But
yeah, I thought about this too, and it's hard for me to even put into words why that is. But it's not just flippant, like, oh, I have to put them in order. I think there's more to the characters in terms of their backstory in Final Fantasy VI than Chrono Trigger. Like, Chrono Trigger doesn't spend as much time with the characters, even though they have some cool stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, there are some things with it, but like, I don't know. Like, I felt like there was more varied backstories to the characters and more deep backstories, and the interaction between the characters. Even I think there was more of that. It felt like a bit of like a longer game to some degree. I don't know. It's tough. Like, also a different time in my life too, right? Like, that many years, it doesn't seem like a long time, but when you're young, it does make a difference. Like, I had to scrape like up money to save for Final Fantasy VI. I remember paying $115 for it at the time. It was substantial, so that probably goes into it too. But
it's funny, Chris. You were mentioning like how like Final Fantasy VI, like, although it's great, like I agree with you 100%. There's this story that kind of gets scattered because it has all those different characters, and they had to make the game a bit broader so that you could slot all the characters in, right? Mm-hmm. It's weird with Chrono Trigger, even though they have a large cast, I can feel like I don't know if I didn't get the same feeling that Tim did, but I get distinct storylines from every single person. Maybe because they limited your cast members in a particular world for a particular time. Like, you had to have Anya for the dinosaur areas, and you had to go there like a couple times. Like,
I don't think that the cast was that large in Chrono Trigger, though.
No, it's not.
No, it's about half the size of Sixes, right?
No, I'd say it's like a third of the size.
Yeah, it's a third of the size. There's a lot of characters in
Chrono Trigger. Only got like 6 characters, doesn't it?
7, 6, 7?
7.
So yeah, like a third of the size of Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
6.
there's a good amount of characters.
I'm sure that has a lot to do with it.
Mm. Yeah, like there's one thing I want to mention on my list. There's a reason why FF7 is on here. I don't know if this is for you, Chris, but for me, there's something like after 6 came out, there was a problem where, in my opinion, where you started losing characters, personalities, and abilities, because they started allowing every character to inherit every other character's abilities and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that started with the Esper system and stuff, and then like in 7 with the Materia stuff. And like, I think that's something that I wish we had back, and I'm hoping it looks like Octopath Traveler has that.
It does look like that.
Because
the one. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go. Yeah.
I was gonna say the one thing that I don't know about Octopath that I'm curious to see. I'm going to assume that at one point the characters all converge story-wise.
Sure.
But I don't know if that's the case or not.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if you guys know, don't say anything. But like,
I don't think anyone knows yet. Yeah. Like on the internet, like there are people that have finished their reviews, but it seems like I'm leaning towards that there is something, but it doesn't happen. I don't think this is going to be another Final Fantasy VI. Like, the characters don't interact a lot in in most of the game, I think, is what's happening.
I don't mind if
curious.
they merge. I just don't want 7's whole, like the beginning of 7 and all the way through the newest Final Fantasies, where I can throw in, like, you can push somebody if you have enough points to have like all of the abilities of everybody else. They're no longer like a certain class of character anymore.
I don't think that that's going to happen in Octopath. That's not the impression that I get from it. What do I know though, right?
That happens, I'll be pretty happy. Like that was.
I mean,
that was,
it seems very clear that you have like a cleric and a dancer and a knight, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Can I just say, like, though, I don't care. Like, I'm still really excited to play it, even if it is going to do something different. I don't know. Like, I enjoyed just playing the demo. Like, the music would really impress me too. Like, I was super surprised that we're getting a soundtrack like what I'm hearing now. Like, it seemed like, yeah, they're putting a lot of. This isn't just a throwaway game, like, at all. I think it's going to be pretty neat. So, pretty pumped.
Then we'll look forward to. And all this RPG talk makes me want Friday to come pretty quickly.
Yeah.
This is a long show.
Yeah, we got to end it.
How about this? If you have like one thing you want to talk about this week from one game.
Me?
Well, just anybody. Actually, I got two really fast ones. Is that okay?
Okay, fine.
Battle Chef Brigade came out free on Twitch.
Yeah.
I think it sucks.
Yeah?
I thought I was going to be into it, and I don't like it at all. I think it's not for me, which is, again, not what I expected, but what it was. I also played a PSVR game called Light Tracer, which is kind of like a platformer where you lead a character up a tower, and it's really, really cool. So if you get a chance to play Light Tracer, I'd highly recommend it.
Cool. Looks like there's a ton of stuff on that Twitch. Like, Twinkle Star Sprites is free. Like, it's a bunch of stuff. So
I bought a Money Puzzle Exchanger on the Switch. Pick that up if you like it. It's kind of like Magical Drop, except you have to worry about coin denominations and things matching up.
What is it called? Money Puzzle?
Money Puzzle Exchanger. It's one of the hot Neo Geo games of the time. And it was like Magical Drop, kind of like to shift things over and organize your money drawer, I guess.
It's an anime game.
Yeah. It's a perfect game.
Interesting.
Okay, that's my quick thing.
I played a bunch of crappy.
One quick thing.
Games,
One
so
quick thing.
I don't think there was anything else that's super on my mind.
Okay, guys, talk to you next week then.
All right.
Yeah, Tim, you're good with that?
Yeah, no.
All right. See you next week, Octopath Traveler.
Have a good week.